Welcome to the Deep Dive by 5W Media. Today, we're plunging into the world of nutrition.
Yeah, it's a big topic.
It really is. We've sifted through a collection of fascinating sources, actually, to bring you the core insights you need to understand, well, how to fuel your body effectively.
We'll be looking at a few different angles.
Exactly. We'll navigate various approaches to healthy eating, from the visual simplicity of something like a balanced plate to the more detailed world of macronutrient ratios.
And even some surprising stuff about muscle growth, right?
Yeah, exactly. Our mission for this deep dive is to equip you, the learner, with a clear, engaging understanding of the key nutritional principles highlighted in these sources.
We want to give you practical takeaways you can actually use.
Right, without getting totally bogged down in overwhelming detail. Okay, let's unpack this.
Sounds good. Where do we start?
Let's start with a concept many of us kind of know, or think we know.
Yeah.
The idea of a balanced meal. Our sources highlight the healthy eating plate as a particularly useful guide. It's not just about what you put on your plate at one sitting, is it? It's like a broader principle.
Precisely. While it's shown as a single plate, the real beauty of the healthy eating plate is how adaptable it is.
Okay.
Think of it more as a template for building nutritious meals, across any context, whether you're putting together a grain bowl, packing lunch.
Or just your dinner plate, yeah.
Or, yes, filling your dinner plate. Exactly.
So what are the fundamental components, then, of this healthy eating plate?
Okay, so the plate is visually divided into sections. Each section emphasizes a key food group. Vegetables get the biggest portion.
Right.
And the core message there is prioritize variety and just lots of them. The more, the better.
And they specifically exclude potatoes and fries.
They do, yeah. Interestingly, potatoes and French fries are excluded from this category, mostly because of their impact on blood sugar.
Okay, that makes sense.
Then fruits occupy the next section with pretty simple advice. Enjoy a wide spectrum of colors. Get all the different kinds in there.
Got it.
Whole grains make up about a quarter of the plate. And there's a clear preference here for whole, intact grains. Think oats, quinoa, brown rice, whole wheat bread.
Over the white stuff.
Over the refined counterparts, yeah. Primarily for more sustained energy release, better blood sugar control.
And where does protein fit into this picture?
Healthy protein also takes up about a quarter of the plate. The sources they really highlight are things like fish, poultry, beans, and nuts. Those are the stars.
Okay.
The plate advises moderation with red meat, and it actually says to actively avoid processed meats.
So bacon, sausages,
yeah,
that kind of thing.
Exactly, like bacon and sausages. Then you've got healthy oils, recommended for cooking, for dressings, things like that. Butter should be limited, and trans fats avoided entirely.
Right, the artificial ones.
Yes. And finally, the plate really emphasizes water as the main drink.
Not juice or soda.
Right. Water first. Unsweetened tea and coffee are okay too, but it suggests limiting milk and dairy, limiting juice, and definitely steering clear of sugary drinks.
It sounds like a real shift in focus. Less about just counting calories, more about the actual, nutritional value of what we're eating.
Exactly. That's a primary insight from the healthy eating plate. The type of carbohydrate you eat is seen as more critical than just the amount.
Interesting.
It really champions the nutritional superiority of vegetables, fruits, whole grains, and legumes. And that strong recommendation against sugary drinks, it just underscores how little nutrition they offer for the calories they pack.
It's also interesting that they don't set a strict fat percentage limit. They actually advocate for including healthy oils. That's quite different from the old low-fat craze, isn't it?
It really is. The healthy eating plate basically flips that long-standing emphasis on cutting all fats way down. It highlights how important it is to include those beneficial unsaturated fats.
Okay.
And it's also crucial to remember the visual sizes on the plate. They're a general guide.
Not exact grams or anything.
Right. Not rigid calorie or serving specs. It acknowledges that, individual dietary needs definitely vary.
Now, this wasn't just some random person's idea, right? Where did this healthy eating plate actually come from?
No. The healthy eating plate was developed by nutrition experts at the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health.
Okay, reputable source.
Very. And the editors of Harvard Health publications were involved, too. It was specifically designed to offer a clearer, science-backed alternative to the USDA's MyPlate.
Ah, so it's a response to that.
Yes, and importantly, developed free from the influences of political or commercial interests.
And is there actual evidence backing it up? Does it work as a guideline?
Absolutely. Research has compared the USDA's own Healthy Eating Index with Harvard's alternate Healthy Eating Index, which is based on similar principles, closely aligned with the plate.
Okay.
And these studies have consistently shown a stronger link between following the alternate Healthy Eating Index and having a reduced risk of chronic diseases.
For both men and women.
For both men and women, yeah. So that emphasis on quality over quantity, especially with carbs and fats, seems to be a really key takeaway here.
Okay, so the healthy eating plate gives us a great visual, a framework for balanced eating. Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But some people prefer a more, well, granular approach. Which brings us to counting macros. What exactly does that involve?
Right. Counting macronutrients, or macros, as most people call it, it's basically a method of tracking not just your total calories,
Okay.
but also the specific amounts of the three main macronutrients: carbohydrates, fats, and protein.
Gotcha. Carbs, fats, protein.
Yep. And the goal is usually to hit predetermined targets for both your overall calories and those individual macro amounts. People often do it for weight management or, building muscle.
Right, so we're breaking down our food into those three big categories. What's the caloric value? How many calories per gram?
Good question. Both carbohydrates and protein give you about 4 calories per gram.
Okay, 4 each.
But fat is more energy dense. It
Yeah.
flies about 9 calories per gram.
Wow, more than double.
Yep.
Now, how does someone even start to figure out their daily calorie needs before they can even think about splitting them into macros?
Yeah, that's the first step. A commonly used tool is something called the Mifflin-St. Jury equation.
Sounds technical.
It sounds a bit technical, but it's a formula. It uses your weight, height, age, and sex to estimate your basal metabolic rate, your BMR.
Which is calories burned at rest.
Exactly. Just what your body needs to function if you're doing nothing. Then you multiply that BMR by an activity factor.
Based on how active you are.
Right. It ranges from sedentary, like sitting at a desk all day, to extra active, like a construction worker or serious athlete. That calculation gives you your TDE, total daily energy expenditure.
Your estimated total calorie needs for the day.
That's the number, yeah. Your estimated overall calorie needs.
And once you have that calorie target, how do you decide on the split? The proportions of carbs, fats, and protein?
Well, there are general recommended ranges, usually expressed as percentages of your total daily calories.
Okay.
Typically, carbohydrates are somewhere between 45 to 65%. Fats usually fall between 20 to 35%. And protein is generally between 10 to 35%.
Those seem like pretty wide ranges.
They are broad guidelines, absolutely. And they can and often should be tailored to what you're trying to achieve or any health considerations.
Like what?
Well, for instance, someone focusing on managing blood sugar and maybe losing fat might aim for something like, say, 35% carbs, 30% fat, and 35% protein.
Higher protein, lower carb.
Right. Or you have ketogenic diets on the extreme end, very low carb, high fat. And then endurance athletes might need a much higher carbohydrate intake.
So the key insight is really that these ranges are just a starting point.
Exactly. They offer a place to begin, but individual needs can vary a lot. You have to personalize it.
So it's really about making it work for you. What are some practical ways people actually do this tracking? You don't need a lab coat, right?
Oh, not at all. The most common ways these days are using food journals or, more often, nutrition tracking apps on your phone.
Like MyFitnessPal.
Yeah, popular ones include MyFitnessPal, Lose It, My Macros, Plus Say. There are quite a few.
And they just calculate it for you.
Pretty much. You log the foods you eat, maybe scan barcodes or search their database, and the app calculates the calories and the macro breakdown for you. It makes it much easier.
Could you walk us through a quick, sort of simplified example just to see how the math works out?
Sure. Let's imagine someone has a daily calorie goal of, say, 2,000 calories.
Okay, nice round number.
And they're aiming for a macro split of 40% carbs, 30% protein, and 30% fat.
Right.
So to figure out the grams, for carbs, you'd take 40% of 2,000 calories, which is 800 calories. Since carbs are 4 calories per gram, you divide 800 by 4.
That's 200 grams of carbs.
Exactly. For protein, 30% of 2,000 is 600 calories. Divide by 4 calories per gram.
150 grams of protein.
Yep. And for fat, 30% of 2,000 is 600 calories.
Yep.
But remember, fat is 9 calories per gram, so divide 600 by 9.
About 67 grams of fat, roughly.
Approximately 67 grams, yeah. So that's their target. 200 gram carbs, 150 gram protein, 67 g fat.
So what are the upsides? Why put in the effort to track macros like this?
Well, one big potential benefit is just becoming much more aware of your overall diet quality.
So?
By trying to hit those specific macro targets, you might find yourself naturally choosing more nutrient-dense foods. Foods that give you more nutritional bang for your buck rather than empty calories.
Ah, I see. Because you need the protein or the healthy fats, not just calories.
Precisely. It can also be a very effective strategy for weight loss, especially if you combine it with certain approaches like higher protein or lower carb intakes tailored to you. Ultimately, it just fosters a much greater understanding of what's actually in the food you're eating.
And just quickly, what kinds of foods should people be thinking about for each macro?
Sure. For healthy carbs, think whole grains like oats, brown rice, quinoa, whole wheat pasta, bread, starchy veggies like potatoes, sweet potatoes, fruits, beans, lentils, peas, even milk and yogurt have carbs.
Okay. And protein?
Protein. Egg whites are great. Lean meats, poultry, fish, shellfish, tofu, beans again, lentils, things like seitan or tempeh if you're plant-based. Milk, yogurt, and of course protein powders are options too.
And healthy fats?
Healthy fats. Things like egg yolks, olive oil, avocado oil, butter in moderation, nuts and nut butters, coconut oil or flakes, avocado itself, full-fat dairy, flax seeds, chia seeds, and fatty fish like salmon.
It sounds like a very deliberate way to eat. Is it suitable for everyone, though?
Our sources do suggest that counting macros might not be the best fit for everybody, especially maybe for individuals with a history of disordered eating.
That's an important point.
It is. But for those who actually thrive on structure and really want that detailed understanding of their food intake, it can be a really valuable tool. It definitely enhances awareness of both the quality and quantity of your food.
Now, shifting gears slightly but related.
Yeah.
Weight loss. There's always so much debate about the best macro ratio for losing weight. What did our research find on that?
Yeah, this is a really crucial point. While it's true that macronutrients influence things like how hungry or full you feel, your metabolic rate, appetite hormones, even muscle recovery,
Right.
the overwhelming evidence points to one primary driver for weight loss.
What?
A consistent calorie deficit, burning more calories than you consume.
So the total number of calories matters more than the specific percentages of carbs, fats, and protein when weight loss is the main goal. That feels like key insight.
That's generally the conclusion from the research we looked at, yes. For example, a 2020 review found that lots of different macronutrient ratios could be effective for weight loss.
Okay.
Another 2020 meta-analysis looked at 14 popular diets, all with different macro profiles, and showed that weight loss happened across the board as long as people were in a calorie deficit.
Interesting.
And even a 2018 study directly comparing low-fat and low-carb diets found pretty similar weight loss results after a full year.
Wow. So it really challenges that idea that there's one magic macro formula for shedding pounds.
Precisely. It seems the deficit is king. However,
There's a however.
there's often a however in nutrition. Some research does suggest that getting a higher protein intake, maybe in the range of 1.2 to 2 grams per kilogram of body weight, can be particularly beneficial during weight loss.
So why is that?
Well, protein is known to help with satiety, feeling full, and it can also help preserve your lean muscle mass while you're losing fat, which is really important.
Okay, that makes sense. Protect the muscle.
Exactly. And it's also worth mentioning the official dietary guidelines for Americans, the 2020-2025 ones, give those acceptable macro ranges we talked about earlier, 45-65% carbs, 20-35% fat, 10-35% protein.
Those are considered healthy ranges for adults generally.
Right. They're considered healthy ranges. But for weight loss specifically, creating that calorie deficit is really the fundamental principle.
Okay, deficit is key for weight loss. What about the opposite goal then? Bulking up, gaining muscle. Does the macro ratio become more critical there?
Bulking. Yes, according to our sources, particularly in the bodybuilding world, bulking is that process of intentionally eating more calories than your body needs to maintain its weight.
Calorie surplus.
Exactly. A calorie surplus combined with intense resistance training, like weightlifting. The goal is to stimulate muscle growth and increase strength.
And it's usually followed by a cut.
Often, yes. It's typically followed by a cutting phase to reduce any body fat that might have been gained along with the muscle.
So what kind of calorie surplus are we talking about for bulking? How much extra?
A common recommendation is a surplus of about 10 to 20% above your daily calorie maintenance level.
Okay.
The aim is generally a weekly weight gain of about 0.25 to 0.5% of your total body weight.
That seems quite specific.
Well, the idea is the higher end of that range, maybe closer to 0.5%, might be better for beginners.
People new to lifting.
Right, who tend to build muscle more quickly. While the lower end, closer to 0.25%, might be better for more experienced lifters to try and minimize gaining excess fat.
Got it. What about the macros then during this muscle building phase? What's the ideal breakdown?
General guidelines for bulking often suggest a distribution like 45 to 60% of calories from carbs.
Quite a lot of carbs.
Yeah, fuel for those intense workouts. Then 30 to 35% from protein.
That's high protein.
Definitely higher. And 15 to 30% from fat.
And that protein range, 30-35%, is that seen as particularly important?
It seems so. It's really emphasized in the sources for supporting optimal muscle protein synthesis, basically, the process of building new muscle tissue and growth.
Makes sense. Protein is the building block. Beyond that high protein intake, what else should someone focusing on bulking keep in mind? Is it just a license to eat whatever, as long as the calories are high?
Absolutely not. That's a common misconception. The nutritional quality of the food is still paramount.
Okay.
During bulking, it's really crucial to prioritize nutrient-dense whole foods. Fruits, vegetables, starchy vegetables, grains, seafood, dairy, lean meats, poultry, eggs, legumes, nuts, seeds, healthy oils.
All the good stuff we talked about earlier.
Exactly. This ensures you're getting all the necessary micronutrients, vitamins, and minerals, and supporting your overall health, not just packing on weight from, junk food.
Are there any specific foods it's wise to limit during a bulk?
Yes, the sources recommend limiting alcohol. Apparently, it can interfere with that muscle protein synthesis process. Okay. Not great for gains.
Not ideal. Foods high in added sugars are also best minimized, just because of their potential negative health effects generally. And it's probably wise to moderate fried foods, too, given their link to increased risk of heart disease and type 2 diabetes.
What about supplements? Do they play a role in bulking?
They can, although, a well-planned diet based on whole foods should always be the foundation.
Right, food first.
Food first. But certain supplements can be beneficial. Caffeine can help with exercise performance, getting you through tough workouts. Creatine is well known for supporting muscle energy and strength. And protein powder can just be a convenient way to help hit those higher daily protein targets if you struggle to get it all from food.
What about mass gainers, those big tubs of powder?
Mass gainers, yeah. They definitely provide extra calories. That's their purpose. But the sources note they often have kind of imbalanced macronutrient profiles. Maybe too much sugar or not the right kind of fat. So they should probably be used judiciously, if at all. Okay, now here's a title from one source that really caught my eye. Greens for Gains.
Oh, yeah. Intriguing.
It is. It suggests that vegetables might play a more direct role in muscle growth than we usually think. Now, our sources didn't detail the specific 5 ways mentioned in that title.
Oh, okay.
But the very idea is quite surprising, isn't it? It implies benefits beyond just general health and recovery.
That is a fascinating point.
Yeah.
Yeah, even without the specifics from that particular piece, the title itself really challenges the conventional wisdom, which is mostly protein. Protein for muscle.
Right.
It hints that maybe there are compounds or mechanisms within vegetables that could directly contribute to muscle development or maybe speed up recovery processes.
Now, might that work?
Well, it could be related to anti-inflammatory properties helping with recovery between workouts. Or maybe specific nutrients in greens that support muscle protein synthesis in ways we don't fully appreciate yet, or maybe other pathways altogether. It definitely suggests that a diet packed with vegetables offers more than just vitamins and minerals when it comes to building strength. Something to think about.
Absolutely. Now, let's shift focus to something maybe a bit more universally relatable. Salads.
The humble Sal.
Indeed. We looked at a Reddit discussion, actually, focused on elevating salads beyond just, lettuce and some dressing. Yeah. What were some of the key takeaways there?
Well, the overwhelming feeling was that a great salad is all about variety. Variety in flavors and textures.
Makes sense. Nobody wants a boring salad.
Exactly. A lot of people find chopped salads, where everything's cut small and mixed, more appealing for that reason.
Okay.
Key elements people mention for a really satisfying salad include balancing those fundamental tastes. Salty, sweet, acidic, fatty.
The 4 pillars?
Kinda, yeah. And texture's just as important. So incorporating crunchy things like nuts or seeds alongside softer things like roasted vegetables or cheese, that contrast really enhances the experience.
So what about the dressing? That can make or break a salad, right?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Many of the Reddit users were strongly in favor of making their own dressings.
Rather than bottled.
Yeah, they often mentioned the stabilizers or sometimes artificial ingredients in store-bought ones as kind of detracting from the freshness.
Yeah.
A simple vinaigrette was a popular starting point.
Like oil vinegar.
Exactly. Oil, vinegar, or maybe lemon juice, salt, pepper, maybe some herbs. Sometimes a touch of sweetness like honey or maple syrup. Easy and way better often.
It sounds like people get pretty creative with what they put in their salads, too.
Absolutely. The discussion really highlighted that you shouldn't feel stuck with just lettuce as the base.
Like what else?
People suggested things like blanched cauliflower or broccoli, even kale as a base. Using fresh herbs, basil, parsley, cilantro. Dill adds loads of flavor.
Yeah.
Roasting vegetables before adding them, that adds this amazing depth of flavor and a different texture.
Good tip.
And adding protein, of course. Grilled chicken, beans, lentils, even leftover cooked meats or fish.
Yeah.
That turns a side salad into a proper meal.
People mentioned using different greens, too, right? Not just iceberg.
Oh, yeah. Spinach, arugula, kale. Lots of options beyond iceberg. And for tougher greens like kale, people suggested massaging it with a bit of the dressing or marinating it for a bit to soften it up and make it less bitter.
Massaging kale.
Wow.
Okay. Were there any really surprising or, unconventional additions people mentioned?
Well, one user did humorously admit to putting tater tots in their salad.
Tater tots. Seriously.
Seriously, which, just goes to show that personal taste is huge, and there aren't really hard and fast rules.
Fair enough.
Other more common but still great additions mentioned were things like olives, different fruits like berries or apple slices, various nuts, cheeses like feta, goat cheese, Parmesan.
Croutons.
Croutons, definitely. Especially homemade ones. Someone called them a game changer.
I can see that.
The recurring theme, though, was using high-quality, fresh ingredients. That makes a huge difference. And for finding ideas, people recommended online resources like Yumly or checking out the Salad Lab on TikTok for inspiration.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
And somebody even pointed out the etymology, the origin of the word salad.
Yeah, that was cool. Apparently it comes from a word meaning salted thing, which is just a great reminder of how fundamental seasoning is. Even just salt can make or break the flavor.
That's a fantastic little nugget. Okay, finally, let's touch on some guidelines from the USADA Nutrition Guide. Now, this is geared towards athletes.
Right, the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency.
But it contains valuable general nutrition principles, too. What did they emphasize about the macronutrients?
So the USADA guide reinforces what we've discussed. Carbs, fats, and protein are the body's fuel. They really highlight carbs as the most readily metabolized energy source, especially during exercise.
Fuel for performance.
Exactly. They stress how crucial carbs are for fueling workouts and also for replenishing glycogen stores, the stored carbs in your muscles and liver. That's vital for both endurance and high-intensity stuff.
And they give specific recommendations for athletes.
They do. They provide a pretty wide range for daily carb intake for athletes, anywhere from 3 to 12 grams per kilogram of body weight, depending heavily on how intense and long their training is.
Okay. And what about protein in that athletic context?
Protein is emphasized naturally for muscle repair and growth. For athletes actively training for those goals, they recommend a daily intake of 1.6 to 1.8 grams per kilogram of body weight.
Similar range to the bulking advice.
Quite similar, yes. But they also caution against focusing only on protein and neglecting other important nutrients you get from starches, fruits, and vegetables. They stress the need for a well-rounded diet.
They give examples, right?
Yeah, practical examples like an ounce of cheese has roughly equal protein and fat. A cup of whole wheat pasta gives good carbs plus some protein. Beans offer both protein and carbs, just showing how foods combine macros.
And how does fat fit into USADA's advice for athletes?
Fat is described as a primary fuel source, especially for lower to moderate intensity exercise, and it's really crucial for endurance activities.
Because stored fat is a big energy reserve.
Exactly. It's an abundant energy source. The guide recommends focusing on unsaturated fats, nuts, seeds, avocados, olive oil, oversaturated fats like butter and fatty meats, mostly for heart health and managing inflammation.
Makes sense.
They give an example, like on a 3,000-calorie diet, an athlete's fat intake might range from about 67 to 117 grams.
Beyond just the macros, what other key nutritional advice does the USADA guide offer athletes that might be useful for us too?
Well, they really hammer home that overall diet quality goes way beyond just macro ratios. Getting a wide variety of whole foods is essential for getting all those micronutrients needed for health and performance.
Okay.
They also give specific guidelines for timing meals before events, especially longer ones, focusing on carbs in the hours leading up, adjusting protein and fat for digestion.
Fueling during exercise, too.
Yes, fueling during activity, especially if it lasts over maybe 45 to 75 minutes. They recommend carbs then, too, to keep blood sugar up and spare glycogen. And they talk about post-exercise recovery nutrition again, focusing on carbs to replenish glycogen and protein for muscle repair.
Hydration must be a big one for them, too.
Oh, absolutely critical. They highlight that even mild dehydration can really negatively impact performance.
So drink up.
Consistently. Drink fluids regularly. Before, during maybe sports drinks for longer or intense workouts to get electrolytes and carbs, and definitely after activity.
Any final points from you, Sada?
They stress getting micronutrients from a varied whole foods diet, and they issue a strong caution, especially for athletes subject to testing, about supplements.
Because they're not well regulated.
Exactly. Limited regulation means there's a risk they could contain prohibited substances, even unintentionally. So the advice is food first, be very careful with supplements, and consult professionals if you're considering them.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into nutrition today. We've covered quite a lot of ground.
We certainly have.
From building that balanced plate to the details of macro tracking, and even why your salad might be more important than you think.
And maybe why you should eat your greens for gains.
Huh? Maybe so. We hope this exploration has given you some valuable insights and perhaps sparked some new ways of thinking about how you fuel yourself.
Yeah, hopefully some useful takeaways for everyone listening.
If you like what you are hearing from us, please subscribe. Also, if you would like and share this video, it helps us tremendously and means so much to us. Please also leave a comment. We want to know what you think and value ideas you might have for future podcasts.
We really appreciate the support.
Thanks for tuning in.